Hey guys, Malthus here once again, and I am pretty pleased to present a wonder that actually has a pretty well-rounded set of skills. We're talking decent single target, really good clear, really good effective health, HP recovery, and not the most painful to put together or most expensive build in the world. So for a wonder, all of that is a really big achievement. What we've got here is some mana stack with the new amulet Whispers of Infinity. I don't remember. Insanity, maybe? Whatever. Whispers amulet that gives you what most people are using it for is to like eliminate mana cost of things. What I'm using it for here is a bunch of extra chaos damage per mana gained. For the amount of extra mana you have. So it's the first time I'm ever actually stacking mana, as far as I can recall. There's always been like metas for Archmage and various reasons to stack mana. I've never actually partaken in any of that. So it was a learning experience for me as to how to stack mana and why we're really doing what we're doing in various gear slots and stuff. And the end result is I gained about 8,000 mana after lots of fine tuning, pros and cons, testing, whatever, and it gives us a fuck ton of extra chaos damage. Now, throughout the process of this character, I was also using power Siphon of the Archmage, so I was gaining lightning damage as well as the chaos damage from the amulet, and I was making a hybrid character, which was doing a lot of chaos and then a lot of lightning. It was something like a 50-50 split, and it was going pretty well as well. In the end, the single target of that one didn't feel as good, and Power Siphon of Archmage just had less reason to exist, given that we were getting so much chaos damage from the amulet. The damage coefficient of Power Siphon Archmage just wasn't good enough to justify its existence anymore. So then I swapped over to Kinetic Blast of Clustering. This one gained added physical damage for mana as well, and that meant that we had a lot of chaos and then a lot of fizz, and all of that fizz got turned to chaos as well, thanks to Unholy Might from a medium cluster. That actually worked out pretty damn well, and I think it's the first time I ever played Kinetic Blast of Clustering. What it does is just shoot out a single proj and turn all of your other normal proj additionals into explosions. As you can see, this is basically what's happening here on screen, and for a good portion of the end game, I played this skill and scaled chaos, the fizz to chaos, and then just a whole bunch of crit and all that sort of normal business. And that kept going for quite a while, and it felt really good. But the single target in the endest of endgame, we're talking like T17 maps and boss fights and stuff, didn't feel quite that good to me. I'm told that you're supposed to do like Fork and Return Proj and Tornado on Spellslinger for this skill. That type of stuff, especially the Tornado on Spellsling, is not really something I would have come to the conclusion of, to be honest. I did try Tornado, just like pressing it, and I did try Fork with Return Proj, and it didn't really feel that good. Supposedly the big difference is to also have the Tornado on the Spellsling, and then of course Awakened Fork, which costs 50 divines, is what takes this thing to another level, apparently. I never did that, I never came to that conclusion, so I don't really like doing things that I'm just like informed of after the fact, because I'm essentially playing someone else's discovery or build. So I did not really go into that route, but I'm not even sure it would have really saved the single target feel that I had on this skill. So it felt a little lackluster for that. But for clear, this skill, Kinetic Blast of Clustering, was pretty fucking insane. You throw out a couple of proj in various directions and just, explosions happen everywhere. And I was farming Harbinger, I was farming Ambush, and just maps in a really comfortable fashion. That said though, I did want to try out the regular Power Siphon, because the regular Power Siphon has a much better damage multiplier, and thus all of our additional chaos just gets much more multiplied than what we would otherwise get through the Power Siphon of Archmage or the Kinetic Blast of Clustering, since they already have a big added multiplied into the skill. So I ended up just being a regular Power Siphon Wonder, because we got much bigger added damage, and then our power charges gave us more crit and more crit multi. That meant that I could pretty much cap out my crit quite easily. It meant I could also have a lot more crit multi, and in the end I was just hitting a lot harder. So after all the experimentation on this build and all the sort of testing of what I should be doing and scaling and min-maxing, I ended up just being a very basic Power Siphon Wonder. This power siphon that you're seeing here is just raw attack speed and damage. I don't have any fork, no chain, no pierce, no fancy shenanigans, tornadoes, nothing. I am just running around right-clicking as a wander, and it feels really fucking good. So that actually quite surprised me, and it was the best version of my current build by a decent little margin that, yeah, I stuck with it and then did a whole bunch of T17s and even did a whole bunch of other endgame like bosses and Ubers with just regular power siphon. Now, of course, the star of the show here is the mana stack. The amulet is pretty OP. You get a lot of extra chaos. I don't know how much I'm at the moment. I think maybe like close to 2,000 additional flat damage. And then, of course, the real reason we're succeeding right now in this build and setup is the CI meta. It's pretty fucking stupid. I don't think I tried super hard on this character to get like lots of energy shield, and by the time I was putting on some of my good pieces of gear, I had something like 13,000 energy shield, and I was capped on spell block, and I have block energy shield recovery from my shield. So all in all, I just became a super thick character without really even trying. And that's just super OP right now for the current endgame. So it's a bit of a side tangent and kind of a divergence from the build, but I do think that the current cancer endgame that we've got here, which is T17s, T17 mods, and 16.5s and stuff, is essentially built around having a character like an energy shield tank like this, because it just makes everything so much more comfortable. In the end, I'm not like looking at map mods that much. I'm barely re-rolling map mods. I'm not like scouring prefixes or suffixes with the scarab. I'm just going, oh yeah, I can handle that, go in, blast. It's pretty dumb because it's just so goddamn powerful compared to the life version of builds that would take quite a lot more to get up to the same speed. But it is what it is. So while it's around, I think, yeah, it's probably correct to enjoy a very strong CI character at least once or twice per league. I'm still going to enjoy my life-based characters, and they're still good. It's just for the comfort of the end game, with all its atrocities that are currently existing, it's a lot nicer to just have a big, fat CI character. So that's kind of the unfortunate truth, but at the end of the day, what we've got here is still a bit of a hipster build. It is using the amulet in a kind of a niche way to stack a lot of mana, to get a lot of chaos damage, to get a lot of energy shield, and then making a wander viable as an occultist, which feels really quite good. It's got good attack speed, it's got very reliable damage because our crit is capped out, and it isn't really too much of a high roll system at all. And it ended up doing Ubers quite cleanly. So I only did a few of the Ubers because I spent a whole day pretty much mapping and still putting the character together and testing stuff. But in the end, this is an Uber Maven that ended up going deathless and very cleanly. The DPS, as you can see, isn't mind-blowing. I think I'm something like 20 million power siphon DPS. So compared to, plenty of other builds that might instantly delete Ubers or whatever, it's not crazy, but it's a very well-rounded build. And for a Wander to have this kind of well-roundedness and decent single target, it's pretty impressive, I think, anyway. So that is all thanks to the amulet. It's thanks to mana stack, which I've never done before, and of course the CI shenanigans that are possible in the current meta and endgame. So it's a bit uncomfortable to put together, and I'll show you what's going on with that. So maybe you can replicate it. Hopefully you can. But with that, let me go ahead and show you what's going on. Now, the character here is Ethical Amulet Use Level 95 Occultist. So what I meant by like a bit uncomfortable put together, it's not that it's like super expensive or like really difficult items. It's just that the intricacies of all like the stats and the res and stuff is a little annoying to put together because you do need a decent amount of dexterity, decent amount of strength, while also gaining the right resist in the right slots. And at the end of the day, I was still super uncapped on my lightning res throughout the entire playthrough. Like, I did all my endgame with 68 lightning res, and a good portion of mapping with like 40 to certain resists just because I couldn't be fucked fixing it at the time. Obviously it is doable. As you can see, my res are kind of imbalanced and stuff, and you can still fix it up in the end, but getting the right dex and strength and everything while maintaining all of this type of mana and energy shield, it's a little annoying. So the build in the end is something like, depending on what your established like pool of currency and gear for CI and stuff, the build's probably anywhere from like 15 to 50 divines, I'm going to say. Something like that, if you're going to try and force something like this. We are built around Whispers of Infinity, so it's infinity. Skills cost energy shield instead of mana or life. Now, that's the main thing people use this thing for various reasons, and it is a pretty interesting mechanic. Like, you can then use all kinds of things while being CI that could cost life or cost mana while you don't have any mana and stuff, and instead costs your energy shield. So it can be pretty interesting for many reasons, but we are mostly using this thing for an added attack chaos damage per 100 max mana. Max mana. So a lot of extra added chaos damage. As you can see here, we've got currently 7 to 90,000 chaos. It costs energy shield, and we do regen energy shield, so we don't have any mana cost issues or anything because we're using Shavron's Revelation in our right ring slot. No regen mana, we regen ES, and we gain a lot of extra mana as well. It's a corrupted one with extra resists, so that's part of some of the intricacy of gearing. Aside from that, I don't think there's anything too special happening in the build. It's just gear that focuses on mana and energy shield while also trying to stack some int, because int gives us energy shield as well as mana, and trying to get chaos sort of stuff to go with it. The passive tree is a bit of a weird one because we do grab lots of mana. We grab this jewel over here that turns our life into mana. Otherwise, we've got some wanding stuff that gives us accuracy from our int. The additional proj is at this point not real because I'm using it for Runegraft of Treachery for extra reservation, and then comboing it with Chaos Mastery that deals 10 more chaos to enemies which have energy shield. So as you notice, we're giving the enemies discipline, so they have energy shield. It doesn't really factor in too often. It's still mostly just bosses that start out with lots of energy shield that you get this benefit from. Otherwise, we're giving them putative elements, but we don't care about that because we don't have any elemental damage, and we don't care about their elements, so that's all fine. So it's basically just extra reservation and a bit of a meme tech that sometimes works. But otherwise, we are just grabbing power charges. We are going for spell block because spell block in this build is pretty damn useful for Vile Bastion. Max energy shield increased by chance to block spell damage, so that gives us a lot of extra energy shield. At the same time, just having a lot of spell block means recover 5% of ES when you block, is what is giving us quite a lot of dumb sustain. If you actually wanted to have even dumber sustain, you can also try and cap out your regular block, attack block, and then just be basically unkillable. Or one thing I was toying around with was cutting a lot of spell block and going all the way down here, getting glancing, and then having decent spell and attack block and just having really good recovery, but it's not, as much of a damage reduction resource. So aside from that, we are also using a cluster, which is part of where some of the weirdness comes into it. You want increased effect, attack speed. The mana is not going to be as important. We don't get that much from this sort of mana over here, but it also solved my dexterity. So this thing cost me like 5 divines, but there's a lot of them out there for like 1 or 2 that, don't quite fulfill all the niches, or you can try making one yourself. Because there were so many on the market, from attack damage while holding a shield or attack damage while wanding, I decided not to try and craft my own because there was a lot out there. So yeah, we're getting lots of dexterity and attack speed from all those, and then also these mana increased effect small clusters. They're not super crazy for the build, but they are kind of nice, so I figured we'd jam those in as well. They give increased percent max mana. At the end of the day, when this build is like coming online, percent mana ends up being like really quite powerful compared to flat mana, so you start going for more of that where you can. And then of course we are using a Watcher's Eye for percent mana as extra energy shield while affected by clarity. I also get my leech from this one for vitality, just wearing vitality for level 1 and doing leech, and that's where we're getting leech from over here. If you can't get that, no big deal, you can just get one of the masteries here that gives you leech instead, but I just turned one of these there instead. So aside from that, we're looking at gear that does mana. So almost none of this gear is super important for mana. We do have Crown of the Inward Eye, which is really nice for our build because we get a lot of extra energy shield, a lot of extra mana, and then turn that into attack damage. And on top of that, the Inward Eye gives you mana and global ES. So we can get one with a corruption for like aura reserve. That's pretty good. You can put your auras in there. Power charge is very expensive, but very good as well. Otherwise, yeah, most of the gear does not provide much mana at all. I still went out of my way to try and do it and get int, but it's not super important for mana. You can skimp out on these and just get more energy shield if you'd rather, because most of your mana is coming from the passive tree and a few other little interactions and stuff. So I crafted pretty much all these just with, fractured mana, and then a percent int belt that I'm reusing from my previous character. And the ring here I'm just using mostly for stats and stuff. This ring slot was really disappointing once I was like coming down to seeing what I could do for a ring slot. It's just not super impactful. You can do various other things with the ring, like Call the Void to shatter things if you want, or mirrored ring for lots of extra mana. And then reusing the chest from my previous build as well, Instack ES chest. Using just dense fossils to do a shaper shield until you get a good combo like this with the ES on block, or just really good prefixes. You then lock prefixes and then reroll defense on the harvest bench, and that will pretty reliably get you to ES block. It's just that it might be a bit RNG, it might take you a few divines. When crafting this, unfortunately, like my third dense fossil landed this guy, which was one of the best ES block sort of shields on the market, and then just had to try and sell it instead. So I rolled like 3 shields in the end, sold another one, and then landed on this one, which is just mid enough that I'm allowed to wear it. The wand is then a bit of an interesting one. We grabbed Fractured Mana. Once again, probably not super important on the wand. You can just go spell damage, and then chaos damage, and use a Chaos Pen craft or multi-mod into Chaos Pen. You can do some prefixes cannot be changed, veils. You can do prefix cannot be changed, suffix veils. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with the wand. In the end, mine is decent. It's not crazy. I don't need that accuracy. I could have used more attack speed, and a Chaos Pen craft on a prefix is probably better than the chaos damage. But this is where we're at. I did have crit throughout most of my life on this wand, but once I went into regular ass Power Siphon that has so much extra crit, I dropped that crit altogether and I was still capped on crit. So you can fuck around with different skills as you're leveling and stuff. Kinetic Blast of Clustering is pretty cool. The regular Power Siphon of Archmage is pretty cool. So there's stuff you can do, there's stuff you can try out. It's all going to be a bit up to the user what you like doing and all that. And I think it's still pretty customizable for what you might be able to want to do with it. One other thing that I used to level with that jump-started my character's career is a Mind Spiral. That thing at low levels gives you a lot of extra energy shield and mana. So you might want to use that for a long time. But otherwise, nothing else too crazy going on. You just need to scale mana, probably do an Archmage or a Kinetic Blast Clustering while you're leveling until you get to level 74 for this guy, and then start putting on gear at level 84, and then, things just start to take off. The Merc, in the end, wasn't anything too crazy either. She was giving me mostly haste. That's pretty much it. And then I used her for Ascendance with Despair and Temp Chains for the extra clear. I capped her res and stuff. She was giving me, that and sustaining charges and stuff. That was mostly it. And as far as Occultist is concerned, I did try out Profane Bloom. I didn't really like it on my build too much. It didn't seem too necessary. I was doing extra curses and stuff, but it didn't seem necessary since the Merc was filling those gaps. So in the end, I did just do Vile Bastion, Forbidden Power, into Void Beacon, and Withering Presence. So there was a lot of min-maxing and testing on this build, and the conclusion I came to is the one that fit for me the best. But I think, there can be other conclusions, and you can tweak this sort of thing to your own liking. Mana stack with various different ways of doing it. It doesn't have to be an Occultist. It can be like Hierophant as well, probably even like Int Strength Inquisitors and stuff like that. Mana stack with this amulet's looking pretty damn thick at the moment. I would just go over the links one quick time as well before I get out here. So Power Siphon into damage on full life, volatility, void manipulation, sacred wisps, crit damage. If you want, you can stick it in like a fork or a chain or something instead for better clear, but I was not suffering on clear at all. We've got faster attacks, tornado, shield charge. So tornado I was mostly experimenting with, but I barely used it in the end. And yeah, it was mostly for the Kinetic Blast sort of thing. I self-curse Ass Mark sometimes. We got Flesh and Stone for reduced damage taken inside a little circle. Precision, max leveled. We got lots of mana, so we can afford to do that. Clarity for just one level for the Watcher's Eye, with a totem setup, of course. Discipline, Tempest Shield, level 3 Enlighten, and a Purity of Elements. And then Vitality and Frostblink over here. So it's probably going to be build of the league. It's not the craziest DPS in the end, but it's such a well-rounded character, and it was so easy to play in endgame that it's probably got to be build of the league. But we'll see. We've maybe still got one or two up our sleeves to have another go, and yeah, see where that takes us. So I hope you guys enjoyed the build and the video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.